This is Lauren from Lauren Watkins Art, and today we are going to be doing a review of these Mungyo Soft Pastels. Now, I was interested in these pastels for several reasons. The first is because I was looking for a good pastel set for beginners. It can be really hard to find soft pastels with decent color saturation at a good price. And when you're beginning, you don't want to be using something that's really expensive, or else you become precious with it. You don't want to use it because you don't want to ruin it or use it all up. So I found these on Amazon for about $8.50, and they, with that kind of price for a set of 64, that's a really good deal. A lot of times artist grade pastels can go up to even like $6 a pastel stick. And with pastels, you have to have more colors than you would, say, in watercolor or oil, because you can't mix it the same. So you have to have a variety of sticks in each color and value. And so these were a pretty good price point. I also was interested in these because they are non-toxic. And when you're first learning how to use pastels, or if a child's using it, you want something that if they accidentally rub their face, or, well, you want something that will be safe for them. Granted, you don't want to encourage them to eat their art supplies, but you don't want something that can hurt them. And so these were listed as non-toxic, which is great because a lot of, again, soft pastels that are artist grade can have ingredients like cadmium in them, which you don't want to be ingesting. And so let's get reviewing and see how these go. So I've already opened my box, and I kind of created a little color sheet of all the colors available in here. Let's remove the packaging. They came fairly nicely packaged. Let's turn this box around. So you can see they kind of fall out of their little slots pretty easily, so you have to keep the box flat. If you roll it at all, they will slide. But they do have the foam, so they don't break very easily. They're a little bit harder of a pastel, so they also aren't overly crumbly. They have, they did not come in this order. When I got them, they were all jumbled up, so I organized them how I do all my pastels, and I have them organized by color family, so all the reds are together, all the greens are together, and then I broke them down like the warm color and the cool of each color. So for example, all my greens, I have all my warm greens right here, and they're broken down by values. So I have my lightest warm green to my darkest cool green or warm green, and then I have my neutrals, and they're by value. And then over here I have my blue greens. So there's the lightest and it fades down to the darkest. I like to have my colors organized by that because it makes it easier for me to pick the color that I need as I'm working. It just helps speed up that process of getting my colors and getting painting. I don't like to sit around too much. With these pastels, they had a really good amount of softness to them. They weren't overly soft like the schminky watercolors, or not watercolors, soft pastels. Those ones are, I think, regarded as the softest ones, and you have to be really careful with them. They crumble, so you typically save them for the end. These ones would be a good medium ground where they're not super hard like the new pastels. You come with a couple new pastels that are a little bit harder. And then you've got these ones, which you can do a lot of layers on, because they're not so soft they fill in the tooth of the paper quickly. I tested it on the type of paper I typically work on, which is the UArt. This is the 400 grade. You can see the 4 right there. Sanded paper. This is just like the sandpaper you get at the hardware store, except for this is artist grade, so it's not going to crumble with time. It's not going to have ingredients that will change the color in it. So If you are wondering if you would like to work on sanded paper, you could go get some sandpaper from your garage or like Home Depot and get like a 400 or a 600 grit sandpaper and draw on that. That's how I decided whether sanded paper was the type of paper I wanted to use. I like sanded paper because I can get a lot more layers on. I can use rubbing alcohol more easily for my underpainting. This paper can take a lot, and so that's why I choose to use it. Other artists like to use just a textured cotton-based paper like the Canson Mitants, and that's perfectly fine. You need to figure out what works best for you. But with working with pastels that are not as dark, and you don't have as quite a broad color range, the sanded paper is really beneficial because you can do a lot of layers, and so you can layer it and basically create your own colors that you need, which was really valuable when I was working with these. Let's put that there. Let me grab some of the sample pieces I did. My first was just this little sketch quick that I did, just a rough landscape, nothing too crazy. I think this took me about 2 minutes to block in, but I just wanted to see how the colors reacted with the sandpaper and how they layered and their saturation, and I was really pretty impressed, especially for $8, or we could round it up to $9. For $9 for 64 colors, it's a pretty good deal. So I did a full-size painting, well, not full-size, but I did a actual still life painting using these pastels, and they worked pretty good. I really liked how many layers I could do, and they went on nicely. There was a good range of colors, so you had a lot of neutrals and you had a warm and cools of each color, so that was really nice to work with. My only struggle I had is that there wasn't very many darks. If you can see on here, there are a few darks. You have a really nice darker blue over here, and you have a dark green, and then you have some blacks. But you didn't have very many like dark oranges or dark reds. And with the apple, I really needed those dark reds. They didn't even have very many dark purples. So I had to do, with working with my apple, I had to do a lot of layering. Typically when I do a pastel painting, I will sketch in the shape, do a thin layer of pastel and blend it out using rubbing alcohol, which these worked well with that. And then I will do ink, some India ink, and block in the darkest values. I did not do that with this one because I wanted to get a realistic idea of how dark the darks are on this. And it was a struggle getting shadows dark enough, and especially in areas that needed to still have the red undertones. That was a struggle. So if you're going to do this and you want to have some more contrast in your picture, I would recommend picking up some ink, some like Bombay India ink. Let me see if I can find some. So I typically use like Dr. P.H. Martin's India ink for part of my underpainting process. And you can see that in some of my other videos I've done. And so I would recommend, if you're going to be working on sanded paper and you're going to be using this pastel set, I would get, you don't have to use Dr. P.H. Martin's. You can just find any kind of black ink and use that for your underpainting to put in your dark values. And that will help compensate for the lack of really dark values in your pastels. If you're not going to be working on sanded paper, you could pick up some darker toned paper, like Canson Mitants has different values of paper. And so if you can pick up a darker toned one, that will help you as well. So you can find ways to work around what you have available. So overall, I think these pastels are a great value. They work well, especially if you're just beginning and you're just trying to find out if pastels are for you. I would recommend this set. If you have children that are wanting to get more into art and experiment, this is also a great set. I would give this a thumbs up for any beginner or any child. If you are an artist and you have artist grade pastels, you aren't going to want these. I don't think they are very light fast because they are probably more dye based, and keep that in mind. But thanks for watching. I will be attaching the video of this pastel apple. So enjoy!